All right, we'll get underway. Thanks all for joining us again. So the intention today is really a follow-up on the information we provided last week. Some of you might not have been on that, but if that is the case, happy to answer any questions really. So it's a bit of an open forum for this for today. We've obviously got Tomo with us, who's represented most of the material last week. And yeah, I guess there's a couple of things we did, which was one, ask people to provide the gap between their maidens and their adult ewes in terms of the weaning percentage of those two different groups of ewes. We're keen to hear anyone's feedback on that or numbers that you normally see around the traps.
Yeah, Ferg, I'm actually working it out now because I'm usually late with my homework, but at scanning time there was 30% difference in conception between maidens and mixed age.
Yeah.
I'll come back to you with the rest.
That's right. That's the pretty big gap to work with. Is that with ewe lambs, or that's your normal two-tooth?
No, normal two-tooths.
Yeah. Cool.
Amount of maidens this year. Most of them got sold in the drought, but yeah, that was that's maidens. Yeah,
cool. Anyone else got any numbers
on mine?
Yeah.
Mixed age scanned at 151, docked at 138. Hogget scanned at 100, docked at 93.
Yeah, all right. Good survival.
And the hoggets were pretty chuffed with that, yeah. But that was pretty heavy shepherding.
And they're all polled also sort of mainly? Yeah.
Yeah. We normally scan a lot higher in our hoggets, but we took the ram out after a cycle and a half just to shorten everything.
Mark, yours will be Romney's, which will be a closer gap, I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'm just busy trying to find my figures now.
That's why I thought I'd panic you. That's all right. We'll leave you alone. You got your numbers, Keith?
No, I haven't got them. No.
No, fair enough. All good. All right. So I guess Mark will throw his in when he gets them. But anyone else? What do you see around the traps, Tim? See if he's listening or not. It looks like he's not. Cool. All right. So I guess what we see generally is quite a significant gap, and that's the point of this project. Is to, and as we covered last week, or Tomo did, is that we don't know that much about. Like a lot of work has been done on adult ewes, obviously, all the lifetime wool work, which became lifetime ewe management, all that stuff has been done on mature ewes generally, sort of 2.5 and onwards. And then we've, since 2009, we've in merinos at least, been doing a lot of work around ewe lambs, and Paul Kenyon in New Zealand's done a lot of work on what's known as ewe hoggets here. So there's been a lot of that study completed, but the actual traditional maiden joined at sort of 19 months of age is actually a bit of a gap really. And so Tomo presented the information we do know last week, and we sort of, I guess, around some of the genetic stuff, we've probably done more in that age group than other age groups. So we're probably pretty strong on the genetic front, stronger on the genetic front. But in terms of management and nutrition, the sort of, we're applying sort of adult principles really, and we haven't done much targeted research, which is the opportunity of this project, is to do some more targeted type work to test what we think would be best bet, which we sort of discussed a little bit last week. But keen to hear any questions or any thoughts. And I guess the other two things we were keen to do last week was things that people have tried or people have heard that other people have tried that have worked, and maybe things that haven't worked so well. So I'd be keen to hear any of those things that people have had a crack at before or are thinking they should try in their younger ewes. This conversation gets a little bit. There we go, Gloves. You can tell me something, will you?
I have a question for yourself and Tomo. A good client of ours, Dave Gregg, is talking about some early research work that's been done using oats fed pre-joining to manipulate number of lambs, number of ewe lambs, if that makes sense. So the omega-3s, some of the omegas in the oats are affecting how they can see whether it's a ram or a ewe. Do you guys know anything about that?
Tomo will know more than I, but it was a bit of work funded by AWI, wasn't it?
Yeah, the work was out of Ed Clayton, out of Charles Sturge, or at least Wagga Wagga. The original work was certainly suggested that, and then AWI about 2014-15, I think we funded it when I was actually working for them. We funded about 15 sites, the sort of farm scale sites, paddock scale sites, and the best I know is that it just wasn't repeatable gloves. So I don't think, I haven't caught up with it, but I don't think there was much in it. Was my take. The early sort of plot scale work, small numbers was promising, but as far as I know, there was nothing really solid at the end of the day.
I'll give it a crack, Tomo. How long pre-joining do I need to start jerking the oats into them? So if I was going to go try and manipulate, like I know you said it's not repeatable, but just if I'm going to have how long pre-joining do I need to start feeding the oats?
I can check it out for you. I think it was 6 weeks or something, but I can check it out and get back to you today.
Yeah, no, mate. Yeah, I'd have a crack on our commercial ewes just to see if we can get some more ewe numbers.
So just for others that might not be sure what we're talking about, so Gloves was just asking about, basically specialised feeding to change the sex ratio in the lambs, and there was some work done that was achieved. And so that was the kind of point of that or the centre of that conversation, I suppose. Through nutrition, I don't know what, even at the plot scale, what size that effect was. Tomo, do you know? Sort of.
Just sit and find it while you're talking, Phil.
Yeah, right. I'll tell a few jokes. Good question, Gloves. Any other questions out there? Any other thoughts on things that you'd like to try in maiden ewes?
Yeah, it's Duncan here from WA. I suppose having never done this before, we've started lambing sort of today. We're going to pull off all the ewe lambs out of a mob of multiples there and keep all of them. The key takeaway I took from last week was get them as big as possible, as quick as possible. And weight seems to be the key factor. Body weight seems to be the key factor that influences conception rates. So I suppose that's what we're going to do. And I've got hopefully got some enough feed around to do that. I suppose, is there a weight? Like, would you say that there's a gate weight, so to speak, to get through? And noting the comment about Sophie's predicament of the ram lambs getting the mums pregnant, clearly they become fertile at a pretty early age. So is there a weight that I should be looking at, or really, if it's let's say it's a 70 kilo ewe, mature ewe, let's say a 55 kilo ewe lamb, like what do you think a weight would be? So
that's for ewe lamb mating, not for a 1.5. Yeah, so mating them at 7 months, don't?
Yeah. So looking at a 7-month mating, and we've got green tag, what we would term hogget lambs in here anyway, that we got from the vendor. So we'll be able to look at both. But really the ewe lambs, what weight?
Yeah. Duncan, a lot of the work, our recommendation is around 75% of mature weight. A lot of it's sort of saying different data sets are a bit different, but if you're at 45 kilos, 47, you're probably within about 5% of the maximum you're going to get. So there's no point having them enormous, okay? And economically, the numbers are coming back pretty consistently around that 73, percent of mature weight. So yeah, if you've got a 60 kilo, well, that's 45, 43, something like that.
I don't think we'll have any chance, any problem getting to 75% of their body weight just with the grass we've got on the ground here. So I'm not too far. If I'll do the same for 75%, and then if anything's less than 75%, we won't mate them. and then that'll be a really clear. It'll be
I
a really
guess that's
clear.
where I'm a little bit different to most. If you're going to get them to mating, if you're going to do something, feed them to get to mating, why not join them all?
Then just see what happens.
Again, all our economic modelling says if you've done the effort, you've got them to join. Okay, you've invested your money. You might as well join them. It's not as if you get to 75% of mature weight and then they're all dry. It's just a continuum.
Yeah.
And I fully believe a lot of 35 kilo ewe lambs getting pregnant, and they probably have a 55 kilo mature weight. People are worried about that they've. If a little one gets pregnant, how do I get them to 65 kilos? Well, the answer is you don't have to. And all our work is also saying that if a 35 kilo ewe lamb decides to get pregnant, the chances she will die is, very little effect on her mortality. She just has a single rather than a twin. And similarly, the mortality of her lambs also isn't as bad as what you might think. So I don't think if you've done the work to joining, you might as well join the lot.
Yeah, all right, cool. Thanks, mate. I'm sure I've got more questions. I just wanted to get the basics out of the way first again. First time.
Mate. Good work, mate. I guess the point there really is we're dealing with natural distribution in any flock. So while 70 might be your average, there'll be sheep in there that are 60 kilo mature ewes. So her 75% weight is completely different to those heavier ones. There might be 80 kilo mature ewes in there as well. And so, I think if you're going to get them up to that sort of weight, which is 52 kilos then you're going to have, most of them are going to be over 40. So you're going to have a good chance of getting quite a swag and then pregnant if you get that weight into them.
Where we got these sheep from, I'm pretty sure if you tipped a bucket of gravel in the paddock, they'd eat that and get fat. It was incredible. I think there's probably more greenery on your wall behind us, mate, than was in the paddocks where we picked these things up from. So, and they weren't on any supplementary feeding out there either. And they just had a mineral lick, and they came off farm and they were in impeccable condition. So, it's a very different management style to the merinos. So we're running a small nucleus flock of merino ewes in a river. And so they're on green feed at the moment, and we'll look to get a couple of rams in soon for them. But very, very different. These things, they're like me, mate. They look at food and they put on weight. We'll just see how we go. But the key thing is we want to start recording all the data because we've not had the time or the knowledge to do that so far. So we'll start in earnest with that. So get all the ear tags and record individual animals and all that sort of stuff. So again, we're very much very, very new in how we're approaching this.
Yeah, cool.
Labs, I just checked that out. So I was feeding from about 50 days before joining at 1.4 times maintenance, so pretty big. And in that original work, it changed the sex ratio from 50-50 to 70% females. But
What was that number, Tommy? What was that number?
Am I rebounding a bit?
No, just that the key number I didn't hear.
70, changed the proportion of girls to 70%.
Yeah, right.
But then it was again reluctant to be critical of other work, but it was reasonably small numbers, and then I went and tried to do that. That was synchronising. When they went to try to duplicate that at commercial scale, it didn't stack up.
Yeah, right.
To the best of my knowledge, anyway.
So that was a pure oat diet at 1.4 kgs.
And cottonseed meal. But I'll flick. I've got the paper here, so I'll flick it on.
Yeah, cool. So that's not supplementary. That's like them in a feedlot.
Yeah, that
50
was.
days.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oats is going to be dirt cheap this year with the big harvest, so could be worth having a go. Just this might sound a pretty silly question, but should ewe lamb joining be used as a tool to cap adult weight? on sheep. Push the early growth, but then use ewe lamb joining to just so we don't end up with those 80, 90 kilo ewes running around. Is that achievable, you think?
It's a really interesting question, Gloves. I mean, I think I've actually got I got Sheep Genetics to look at this one for me. So they pulled out mainly with maternals because the data set was bigger, with 150,000. They pulled out the adult weight, and Ferg might comment how good that adult weight measurement might be. But for those that were, not joined as a ewe lamb, or had a single or a twin as a ewe lamb, and there was actually bugger all difference in adult weight. Now, presumably those that were that did have a single or twin were fed better as a ewe lamb. Okay, so there's some not as if they've been run together for life. Okay, so the data's not perfect, but that Paul Kenyon again in New Zealand done a little bit of that work, and the effects are not huge. I know individuals running around the country saying you'll reduce adult live weight by 5 to 10 kilos. I think that's nonsense. There might be a little bit in it, but it's my gut feel is it might be a 2 or 3, but the data is pretty sketchy.
Did you have data from Cashmore Oakley on that last week, Tommy?
Not on mature side, not on.
Oh, that was just their weighted hogget.
That was just their weighted hoggets, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But it's one. Yeah, it would be nice to get to answer it properly, because it's certainly a fairly common belief, perception, whatever. Maybe it's reality that you'd certainly do reduce adult size, because that would be huge, in terms of the economics of case for joining new lambs.
Yeah. Whereas, the opposite can be true too. If you feed, like you said, if you feed them up to get them pregnant, then you grow them out more than what you normally do, and they might actually.
Correct. I think we're seeing some of that, and that was a bit of discussion last week, wasn't it? And again, that's why I think that the target joining weight for 19 months is the same. Whether you fed if you've got a pregnant, you've fed her so much better. There's no reason you shouldn't be getting 95, 100% mature weight at 20 months.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people aren't getting there, and they don't join them as you.
True. Tim's just asked on the chat, Tomo, around the number to weigh. Are we still, as a recommendation, if you're heading for a target and you're weighing them frequently, is it 50 per mob as we've sort of always recommended, or is that? Yeah, no,
that's what I certainly recommend, Ferg. I mean, it did sort of drift down to 25 there for a while, but you've gone to the effort to get them in. Take you 2 minutes longer. So I'd stick to 50.
Yeah. Yeah, take you
longer. And that's the condition scoring as well. I mean, that'll be, if you do 50, you're probably going to be within about a kilo of the true weight. And if you're, repeatable with your condition score, probably within 0.1, 0.15 of your condition score of the true number had you done hundreds of them.
Cool.
Hey, probably one for you, Tomo. Looking at the other side, the ram side of it, obviously these younger ewes aren't as experienced, so you might need more experienced rams. Was one of the things that was being discussed last week. Yeah. If they're only cycling for 17 days, why would we leave rams in there for longer than 17 days with younger lambs? Like, you almost want to get them to cycle more frequently, if that makes sense. So do really, really short joinings. You said there was 80% of conception rate in the first 70 days. Was that correct?
Well, that example was with adult ewes. I guess traditionally we've, the work done in the 60s and 70s suggested that about, 100% of adults will get joined on the first cycle, more or less, of which about 70% would conceive. But, the Tim Leemings of the world. I think we've all seen Tim's data, and others are now producing data that's saying, 80-85% get pregnant on the first cycle. Okay, so I guess the sheep's changed. I don't. To come back to the question with ewe lambs, I can't really say how many might, what the numbers might be there for ewe lamb.
Yeah, so for maiden ewes, ergo, that's why you want to get more data. So, yeah, all right, cool. Thank you.
I think, again, because, a lot of people are already joining their ewe lambs a little bit later. You don't want to stretch it out. I think you want to use teasers regardless of when you're joining. And yeah, definitely not over 5 weeks. But I think a lot of people, I think if Hamish was here, I think Hamish goes for 1 cycle in his ewe lambs, and I think more and more people are doing that.
We did just over 1 cycle this year and got 100%, and in previous years we've done 2 or close to and got roughly 130 in our hoggets. So it was quite a big difference, and we didn't expect it to be that much.
So that's 100% conceived. How many 100% scanning? So how many? What was the conception rate in that?
I know. It's all written down somewhere, but no, I haven't got it on me. But it's probably.
How many had twins?
It'll be on Twitter somewhere. We had more twins and more dries. We would have rather singles. It was a lot of dries, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. So you probably are down at something like 70% conception then.
Yeah.
You mentioned, and maybe we touched on it last week. If we could just have it again, there is a little bit of work, is there, in New Zealand on teasing ewe lambs but not joining, and then maybe some evidence that they do better as a hogget or as a 20-month-old. Where is that exactly?
I need to follow up with the people that did it. So Christopher Mulvaney came up with the hypothesis and then tested it with a few farms, and I haven't heard it being a screaming success, but the concept was, to get, I guess those somewhat dodgy ovulations out of the road by reaching sexual maturity before they go into anestrus as the days lengthen again after into July. I haven't seen what the response has been. I need to chase that up.
I worked for a guy in Southland doing it, and he didn't notice any difference over the 2 years that he did it with his.
Yeah, right. Cool. And that was in what type of sheep?
Romneys.
Yeah. Be interesting. So I'll chase up with a couple of people that I know that did do it, and it certainly hasn't hit the airwaves as being a major impact. So I think it might be the same outcome, but I'll check that out. How'd you get that, Mark?
A year roughly. So last year, obviously we haven't finished tailing yet this year, so I haven't got this year's stuff for you. But last year we mated about 91% of our ewe lambs that were up to weight, so we cut them off at about 40 kilos. They scanned 108%, but they only tailed 65%. So there was quite a few.
What about your normal, 19-month-old mating? That is pretty much the same as your adults, or you don't know that data? They just get thrown in the adults? Or?
No, they're definitely scanned different. They're not necessarily tailed different, but they always scan probably 15-20% back on the mixed stage ewes.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And the percentages through the tailing yard, so just lambs tailed to ewes through the tailing yard, are always pretty disappointing. But interestingly enough, this year the first cross with our the maternal titters that have been coming through so far have been a lot higher than previous years. So don't know whether it's smaller, easier lambs and less lambing issues with these quarter breeds rather than straight Romneys, or what the story is, but so far looking pretty good.
That's good to hear. What sort of increase? You're not sure yet.
Well, the first mob of maternal titters we tailed, so traditionally last few years they've probably been doing 168, 170% through the yards, whereas the first mob did 184.
Yeah, right.
So I mean, that's not not really taking into account any ewe deaths or anything. I haven't worked that out at the time, but it's just because you've got an idea of survivability.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then the rest of them haven't been quite that good, but definitely sort of 10% up on last year.
Yeah, right. Has anyone done anything interesting in their maidens in the last decade? 5 years, 1 year?
We joined our ewe lambs last year for the first time at 7 months. Pushed into a corner with the season, so they were in containment, and we just put the rams out. They picked the ones they wanted to, and they conceived at 58%, I think, somewhere around there. And then at marking time, they came back at they marked 103% to ewes conceived, with a conversion of 78 or nearly 79%. So pretty happy about that. But obviously our body weights weren't high enough at joining. So this year, with the luxury of a bit of green grass and a bit more knowledge, we'll really push their body weights along. And same thing, everything will just get joined. We won't class, just join everything and see what happens.
Yeah,
it's worked pretty well. So they're fleece weighing here today, and at smoko time, the ewe lambs that had lambs were only weaned last week, were averaging a bit over 3 kilos. So it'll be interesting to compare them against what didn't lamb to see the difference in fleece weights. So tomorrow.
Yeah, cool.
But as a lamb, they look pretty good. Like we weaned, I think I said that last week. We weaned, and their body weights as lambs of lambs were the same as the mixed stage. So I'm still not sure which one I've stuffed up. But anyway, we'll see how we go. But they'll all come through the weigh box. Actually, these ewes that we're shearing now, the lambs that had lambs, will all come through and get weighed and body condition scored next week. So it will be interesting to see. To the eye, they look about 5 kilos lighter than the others. But I dare say that could be a little bit bigger, that gap. But they've handled themselves pretty well considering.
Yeah, cool.
We probably found the opposite last year. The ewe lambs that were mated ended up being better condition than the ones that weren't mated.
Yeah, right.
For reason.
That's just because you had a bit more TLC heading that direction rather than the others were out having some scenery, or what was the difference?
Yeah, I guess so. The ones that were mated head off down country for the winter, or for 2.5 months over the winter.
Yeah.
But when it was only a mob of 100 ewes on some pretty big blocks, they should have done all right. The empty ones, they didn't do anything. They put weight on their own backs. So
yeah.
But I guess they're just born smaller, just a naturally smaller sheep, and that was how they stayed.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you pick the eyes out of them really when you take the ones that get pregnant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting though.
So coming back to the ewe lamb joining as a tool to cap adult weight, like that's a bit of a furphy. So we've still got to be mindful of our adult weight going forward. Is that correct? Do you think?
I think there's a couple of things. Like Ox has done a lot of modelling on this, and Andrew Kennedy, and it was not easy to find the economic optimum for it. It depends on what your turn off weight of your lambs is. If you're turning off heavy weight of lambs, you can have quite a big ewe and still be, like, in terms of economics, it's still okay. Obviously, handling massive ewes and getting shearers and stuff is probably more of an issue. I think there's a need to keep a cap on it a bit, but it's not. I think we have to be careful we don't overdo that. But like, it's not. Obviously, animals grow towards their mature weight, and so the faster they grow, the heavier they're going towards, the faster they grow, and so that's sort of what we've been manipulating. We are finding genotypes that will do it early and then cap, and that's obviously what we're trying to do. And that's ideal. But yeah, I think we need, if we keep putting heaps of fat and muscle into them, and we keep a bit of an eye on adult weight, generally what we see is, yeah, adult weights get big where you've got high growth and no fat and muscle. You get massive ewes, in a merino that is at least, and probably the same in every sheep really. Like obviously by going for fat and muscle, you're selecting for early maturity. And we certainly do see genotypes that will be the biggest at sort of 200 days and then be the smallest by ram sale time. And that's the ewes you want really. So yeah, I think sort of going around in circles there and contradicting myself, but it's economically it's hard to get an optimum, like in terms of modelling, because if you're turning off big lambs, then you can get away with big ewes. But I think if you get the best of both worlds if you get them growing early and then shutting down, obviously, and that's bending the growth curve and kind of a bit of a holy grail. But I have no doubt that that's what we're seeing in some genotypes these days, which is good. And I think it comes, you're selecting for higher condition score, and they're sort of they're a condition score 3 at a lower body weight basically, and that's ideal as long as you get that growth to go with it.
Every 5 kilos in body weight is about 8% more feed conversion. Isn't that right, Ferg?
Oh, I don't know the numbers, Tom. I'd have to throw that somewhere else, but I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, sorry.
That's Darren's, yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But no doubt, like obviously, the heavier they are, the more they're going to eat. I think we have to be careful with, I don't know if we talked about this last time or not, but certainly a few people in the industry talking about it, and it makes sense. It's in beef as well as sheep, that we have to be careful when we start selecting for lower adult weight, that we're not just selecting for poor doing sheep. Like one way you're skinny, or one way you're light at joining time is if you're useless and you're actually quite skinny. So there's a need to make sure you're not just a small ewe, like you're not just a light ewe, you're actually a smaller frame in good condition at that body weight. So it should be a standard reference weight shift, not a straight weight shift, because that's I think what we've seen a little bit in beef and also in sheep is that some of these lower adult weight or mature cow weight type animals are actually just poor doers, and that's a risk of selection blindly on an adult weight type figure.
We've obviously got this current project, GPEP. So having a close look at intake capacity and whole body energy in 30 of the MLP size. So and live weight would appear to be a very poor proxy for stocking rate. I mean, so if we looked at with weather trials and all that sort of stuff, normally you'll see numbers on gross income, and sometimes you'll see people attempt to adjust that for metabolic live weight to get some idea of stocking, income per hectare, I guess. But when we've actually measured real intake and measured real whole body energy reserves and what that might mean for stocking rate, the correlation's 0.2, 0.3. So I guess it's a long-winded way of saying there's a lot more to it than live weight. You can get you get big sheep which don't eat much. You get, whatever. There's a lot more to it than just live weight. But we'll have a bit of a story on that, I think, over the next 6 months or so.
So that's brand new information, Tomo. So that hasn't reached so traditionally we've been relying on live weight, but this project's really going to blow all that apart, hopefully.
Is there any correlating traits so far what you can see, Tomo, that you can say to link into that whole body energy?
Say that again, Ricky.
Correlated traits, Tomo.
Whole body energy or what?
Yeah, correlated traits with whole body energy.
I haven't looked at the data for a little while, Ferg. I mean, one of the interesting early ones, Ricky, was CV of fibre diameter. So, and fat, of course. Okay, but I haven't really looked at the data for the last. Well, I only looked at data of the 2016 drop. I haven't looked at the data that was collected over the last year or so. But again, that's in hand, and we'll have something on that in the next couple of months. But what was really interesting, what I can say with a little bit more confidence is things like condition score or ultrasound fat depth are quite poor predictors of whole body energy because of where animals are putting their fat. And what I mean by poor, I mean like it might explain 40% of the real variation. So if you measure condition score, it might only explain 45% of the variation in real fat in animals. It's condition score, fat depth, whatever. They're the best we have currently. But a part of this project, again, is to identify new measures that are not going to cost an arm and a leg, where we can get a far better handle on true energy reserves.
Any other? Oh, yeah, gloves go, man.
Yeah, no, not a question, but just we're actually spinning all our commercial ewes around. They'll get the ram in about 14 days' time. So we've just weaned lambs off them. So they've had 30 days without the lamb on, and we get the rams back out. So there we go. So the teasers will go out tomorrow. They had a regular a week before weaning. So yeah, pretty excited to try and do a double join. Got to get some more sheep about us.
Yeah, good plan. You got grass, and you got sheep. So it's a good combination.
Yeah, no, it's a nice change.
I think that first, I'd be surprised if it doesn't go really well. Particularly this one now, it's the easiest one because they're still going land.
And they're fat. So weaned early and give them a couple of good fresh paddocks that nothing's been in. They should bounce away. But this will be the first time we've done teasers properly, so be interested to see the difference to previous years. We were going to vasectomise some rams, but turned out more people wanted to buy rams than we thought, so we didn't have any left over. So we just needled up some wethers. But yeah, they'll go out tomorrow to do their thing. Should be good.
Portion of your commercial flock, or I mean, at what scale are you rejoining so quickly, or everything?
Yes, our 1,000 commercial ewes. Yeah, so our whole commercial base will go again. Yeah, we did consider rejoining a few. All the ewes that were AI'd in the stud program will also go into the autumn stud joining, but they were sort of a fortnight, 3 weeks earlier than the main joining. So yeah, there's quite a few going round again, but yeah, got to make hay while the sun shines. I think try and get the numbers back up, and this is the best way for us to do it, biosecurity wise and our genetics. So see how we go.
Good.
What's your program there? How many weeks you plan on joining for them, and if they fail, will they fit back into your regular joining?
So 4 weeks. We'll join for 4 weeks, and then anything that scans dry, we will give another go to. Normally all dries go, but anything that's had a lamb and we're trying to double join, we'll just give another chance. Same thing, like we're just trying to keep our ewe numbers up, get as many lambs on the ground as we can. So we're sort of bending the rules a bit this year.
It's probably fair enough to not be too harsh on them if they don't get straight back in lamb. What sort of condition are they in, do you know?
Sorry?
What condition score are they, do you know?
No, shearing, they'll get shorn next week, so I'll put my hand on a few then, but they're fat, so they'd be north of 3, I imagine.
Oh, yeah, right.
But I'm just trying to find most of those ewes did marked 144 to ewes joined. So 159 to use at marking. So there's plenty of twins in them, so it's going to be a bit of a big ask. So it'll be really interesting to see how far we can push them.
If they're back to condition score 3, then it should be good to go.
Well, I would think so. They never got under condition score 3, I don't think so. We've done everything right. Regular and a teaser, like it should spring them back into gear pretty quick. It'll just be a matter of whether they're with their milk only sort of drying up, whether they're still in that stage or not. I don't know. It's a bit of foreign ground for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I've only ever done it once and it worked a treat, but
yeah, okay. We'll see how we go.
Yeah.
This is all very tempting.
Yeah, get into it. You got poles, I'll do it any time of year. Although, you'd be pretty temperate. You grow green grass all through the year?
Yeah, we don't stop growing grass here. And we're short on new numbers too, so now I'm really thinking.
That's the go. Yeah, I can't remember the numbers, gloves, but the time we did it, they were used. We brought it over from WA to home, and yeah, same thing in a rush to get numbers up. And I think they did the same, like they backed up with exactly the same scanning as they'd done the time before.
What was the scanning the time after?
I think it was one. I think they were sort of done 145, and they did 145 again. They weren't. They were merinos. Yeah, so I think it was not massive numbers. I think only, I don't know, 250, 300 ewes or something in that group, but it proves they can do it.
It's what we do next that I'm a bit like, do they stay? Well, they've nearly got to stay in that November joining program then, which is fine. It just all of a sudden we've gone from joining about 1,000 ewes in the November program to about 4,000 because all the ewe lambs that scan dry are getting a ram now too, instead of going around to March. So yeah, it'll. But what it will do is all those lambs that are born out of this joining will then be 10 months of age for their first joining, if that makes sense, instead of being 7. So that should really kick us along.
Yeah.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
I guess not unique to you, but unique to how far north you are. Like you'll get when in a normal year, not that you know what one of them is, but you can get rainfall right the way through. Whereas if you're down south in a Mediterranean environment, it's less appealing. But for you guys, you can have green grass in as much green grass in April as you can have in September, can't you?
Oh yeah, well, don't they tell me? So we'll see. It's gone from a moonscape to I think we're about 8 inches above our annual average rainfall at the minute. So we've gone from one extreme to the other. So I'll be quite happy to drop back into 3 or 4 normal years after this. It'll be good.
Tim's asked a question around lactational and estrus. Is there any breeds that experience that? And I think, I think we would expect there is. We probably just I haven't never looked into it with any great detail. If there's a breed effect of those that go into a stronger lactational and estrus than others. I don't know, Tom, have you ever looked into that?
Can't add to that, Ferg.
Yeah.
I remember Andrew Kennedy doing something about it, but I don't know.
It'd be in Ox's split review, wouldn't it, probably? Did he do accelerated lambing in his PhD in the end?
During there, yep.
Yeah. There's that Cornell University run that star system where they do it all the time, and so ewes just drop back out of one joining to the next. So that there might be some information in that.
It'd be interesting with current new markets to do the numbers to see sort of in the southern zones how the cost of that up if you had to feed the ewe the whole time on a shorter joining, if you didn't have the grass with what.
Yeah, it would be. I think I've always wanted someone to actually have a really good crack at a system. I think over here you'd need irrigation. Well, depending on where you are, but yeah, I think what I saw ewes make 400 and something bucks this week today. So it does. You can feed a fair bit of silage and grain for 400 bucks. It would be interesting, the economics of that sort of crazy numbers, particularly if you are trying to build numbers, it's safer and fair chance cheaper to do it with something within.
The value of stock at the moment. But you could probably.
What was that comment, Ricky? Then we'll go to.
Probably work. Sorry, I was just going to say it'd be interesting to work it out on 6 months ration.
Yeah.
How to get to feed them all instead of irrigation.
Yeah. And this year it might be, well, a good chance it would be in the money. Sorry, Dunk, what was that?
I was going to say the study you mentioned a university that had done that study where the ewes that are dry fall into the next cycle. Where can I find that, mate? I'd be pretty interested to have a read, because that's pretty similar to the sort of system I want to set up over here. So I've got a blank canvas, so to speak. So these, I'd like to step into that sort of system, and I've got an opportunity to set it up from the front end.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure it's Cornell University. Oh, there we go. Tomo's, Tim Goal, somebody has. Tim Goal has just put in the chat. I don't know if you can see that there, Dunk. So Cornell University have I think they call it a star. Yeah, it is star, is it? Look at that. Oh, is it 5 and 3? Yeah, which I think's. What are you doing? You're trying to do shore wind, and then that'll be about what you're up to, is it, Gloves? About an 8 month between rams. Where is he? Oh, there he is. He's gone to drench some sheep off shears or something. Yeah, I haven't looked at it for probably a long time, but yeah, it'd be interesting.
Is anybody playing with that double joining in New Zealand too?
Not that I'm aware of. Sophie's going to give it a try by the look of it, so that'll be good. But no, I haven't been able to convince anyone that I know. I haven't. Yeah, I don't know of any. Is the short answer. But I reckon there's places where it had, if you could get rid of the summer and we know how to deal with winter, and with irrigation or whatever, then in summer, then I think it should be possible.
Yeah, places up north, surely.
Yeah. You'd think so. Well, I guess the economics are going to be a lot stronger in Oz at the moment with crazy ewe prices. Ewe prices don't seem to ever get to crazy numbers over here, but not sort of $400 prices anyway.
Did it years ago, like 2 or 3. When prices weren't as crazy as they are now, and I'm sure the story was it was still worth putting them in a feedlot for a year. Rather than ditch them and try to get back in. I think, I was running some U-time forums at the end of 2017, and he did the economics around that time. So, so $300 and $400 a year or whatever they are. I mean, it's interesting to look at the numbers.
We did it before we had the Highlanders.
Yeah, right.
We were running on a 8 months.
Too.
Yep. Yeah, 8 month cycle, and it pays, and it nearly pays to put them in a feedlot. The issue was the summer lambing, to have enough feed for the lambs on the ground for the January lambing sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Where we were, but otherwise it paid. I can tell people that now.
Yeah.
I think we did it for 3 or 4 years before we brought in the sheep from New Zealand.
Yeah, right. Cool. Thanks, fun.
Chad's brother-in-law does it just up the road actually with merinos, and does it pretty successfully. So.
Oh, he does too. Yeah, that's right.
It'll be. I haven't seen that paper, or that's where it disappeared till I downloaded it, so I have a read. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, cool. Question: you were 8 months between rams, basically, are you, or a bit more than that? 9 months.
No, it'd be less.
Yeah, right.
Right. We weaned at 60 days or 50 days, so.
Right. Yep. Okay. Yeah.
5, 7. Yeah, so no, it'd be 7.5, 7 months thereabouts for this one. Yeah.
So it is pretty much on the star system of 8 months, sort of going around the cycle.
Yeah, that'll be bloody good.
I think we shifted 1 cycles a month to get a better conception when we did it.
Yeah,
just because the way the timing works. So it went 8-8-9 or 8-8-10 or something.
Yeah, right.
To play with it a bit more.
Yeah.
I guess this thing is, I still reckon this cold climate down here, 6 months shearing is going to be a tough ask. You can pitch in what Martin was saying with that sort of 8-8-9 and pitch it in the shearing. You could probably get a good little system going. So it coincided with your shearing and your kicking, your feeding system and your joining.
Yeah, that's right. You can generate a completely different system off the an 8 month calendar rather than a 12-month calendar. We obviously got the project on the wrong stuff, Tomo. We should have been accelerated lambing. Right. Really interesting chat there around the opportunities. But yeah, I guess we'll keep answering questions. But for those that are needing to head off, I guess the point, just to reiterate, the point of the project is to get some trial work going on around, well, get some demonstration work around maidens, which is getting a group of ewes in addition to, or getting a group of ewes of your maiden ewes and treating them to what we think will be best practice, or best bet of that best practice, and then leaving the rest in the way that you would normally manage them. So if anyone's keen, we'd be keen to hear from anyone that's keen to do something there. The project is Australian based. It's funded by MLA, so we need to do 8 demonstrations in Australia, but certainly we're keen to, across our network, anyone that wants, would certainly try and help support and get some measurements. It'd be good across if everyone started to, I guess we're trying to build a bit of a network of people who are interested in improving their maiden ewe performance. So you don't have to host a trial, but can just keep a bit of a guide, or keep some of your data so that we know how you've gone. And probably key points are obviously those weights leading into mating, and that mating weight, and then how that transpires into scanning from those individuals. So if anyone's got, obviously those value IDs are going to make that easier, but even just mob-based stuff of starting to build a bit of data around those ewes are in 45 kilos and they achieve this scanning result, just starting to build data that's relatively scarce at the moment.
Add to that, I mean, there has been a lot of discussion around ewe lambs, which was great. Obviously, we did put a proposal in as well on ewe lambs. We got 2 of them funded, but not the ewe lamb funded one. But we'll put that back in. So I hope again this network we can do stuff focused on the 7-month-olds in years to come.
Yeah.
But this one is very much about the 20-month-old. And I think Tim's asking there about what. Yeah, Tim, we don't specifically know what all the condition score or live weight targets are during the year just yet. But I guess from the discussions over the last 4 weeks, this group and the one prior to that, I think live targets at joining is an obvious one we could test if there was an appetite for it. What would we test? I think maybe something like the more traditional management of 80-85% mature weight at joining versus feeding them more and maybe getting to 95, putting another 6 or 8 kilos on them at hog at joining, measuring how they do as a hog and then how they do as a, in the subsequent year as well. So, and I guess we've got to decide, if we were to do that, well, we want to do that at a bunch of sites, maybe 4, to get a bit of rigor, I guess. And I also picked up on the points Ricky was making last week about live weight change during joining. As I said, I'm convinced it's really important in ewe lambs, 7-month-olds. I've never been convinced it's important in adults, but Ricky was, he certainly seeing it in his maidens, if I interpreted that correctly, and maybe in his adults. So that would be nice to test. So again, any farm would weigh them at joining, and then would put one on, a really good nutritional path and one on a normal path during joining, and again measure what happens over the subsequent 2 years. So that's just an idea, Tim, of what they might look like. But I mean, I guess Ferg will follow up after this and try to get a feel for what specific comparisons the network may want to compare and who might want to host them. I think we did say last week too that if you've got 1,000 hoggets or something, maybe you want to manage 800 of them as normal management. You might take 200 under something new. Okay, so you don't have to, split them down the middle and whatever if that's too risky. But obviously, everything we're trying to do is to improve performance. But if it is about feeding extra, obviously it's going to cost a bit. Hopefully, it makes a bit too. But so that's a bit of an idea what it could look like. It's across the board. There's not, we're not too fussed about breeds.
No, not at all.
So nothing's out.
No.
Again, it's about they produce a, demonstration site. So it's very much we're here to try to help what you guys might want to see.
So if we are joining new lambs, we'll have to note them because we couldn't have them in the experience because they've had a lamb, but yet they're still 20-month-old. Is that the way it would work? If you are joining new lambs, the ones that have a lamb as a lamb wouldn't be in the experiment?
have an issue with it, Ricky. I mean, you just want to make sure we allocate it appropriately, you know, so all those that get in the good nutrition group didn't have a single the year or whatever. You know, but if you know what they've, at least they scanned as a ewe lamb, you know, we start again. You know, we do a hogget experiment, but we make sure in this treatment group there's, you know, half of them are singles and half of them are twins or whatever it might be, and same as the other treatment group. So that I think if you join ewe lambs again, that wouldn't mean, you know, you can't be in this. That's how I see it, Fergs. I don't know if you see it any differently.
I think that's 100%. I think when perfect have that overlay as well, I suppose. If like by balancing it would mean if the numbers were right, you could potentially see management by that ewe lamb response.
I think we'll get more out of it. Yeah. We still achieve the, you know, we can still test the effects of live weight at joining as a 20-month-old or live weight change during joining or mob size at lambing or whatever it might be. But we even get to know more because we know what they had as a ewe lamb.
Yeah.
You know, and as we presented a little bit last week, you know, it seems like a pretty good screen of how they are going to go as a whole.
Yeah, definitely.
20-month-old. We would probably need to move pretty quickly after today. I guess, you know, if we do want to, I guess a lot of this network is probably February joiners and beyond, other than gloves. You know, if we do want to generate live weight joining, we probably want to get a weight on, you know, pick the sites and get a weight and start to separate them, you know, over the next month or so. Yeah.
So we'll go out with emails to everyone that's signed up to this, everyone and then I'll sign up to the Magnificent Maidens series, and then we'll go out to everyone within the Next Gen Agri network as well. And so we'll call for sites and then get moving on those rapidly once we know where they are and who they are. Cool, righto. As usual, we'll sit here and answer any questions, but if you've got more exciting things to go and do, then thanks very much for coming along. Thanks for the questions. These are pretty tough sessions if nobody asks any questions, so great to have a few coming through. Thank you. Really, I guess the point is with these PDS type things is it's very much producer led. So we're here to facilitate and bring it together, but ideally answering the questions you want answered rather than the things that we think are important. So thanks for your participation so far, and we hope to keep that going along. The intention is it's a 5-year project, so the intention is that periodically we'll send out invites to sessions like this for specific information, but we'll also keep information flowing to you is the plan. So thanks for coming along and thanks for your contributions, and keep the questions going now if you want, or head off and enjoy the rest of the day.